Hello and a very warm welcome from ET Studios, ETHRWorld and Coursera. I'm Bina Lasson. Now in this series, we take you on an in-depth journey to understand the future of learning and work, creating more equal opportunity in a more digital world. Now in each episode, we explore how exactly digital technologies are revolutionizing education, the importance of skill development for employability, the strategies to overcome language barriers, and emerging trends fostering a more inclusive digital ecosystem. Let's dive right into our conversation on creating a future where technology and opportunity intersect for all. Without further ado, it's my great pleasure to welcome our guest today. We have joining us Asha Subramanian, CHRO Subex, Bina Belani, Head of Human Resources, Fashion and Lifestyle, Geo, Moumita Kurup, VP and Global Head of HR, Sasken Technologies, and Arushee Aggarwal, Head Coursera for Business, India. Ladies, welcome to ET Studios. It's an absolute pleasure to have all of you here today. Thank you so much for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you. So we're here, first of all, on an all-women panel. I must point this out, all leaders in the HR space. So a really special conversation we're going to have today. Wonderful to get your perspectives on our central topic, which is extremely relevant across industries, across workplaces, which is the future of the workforce when it comes to education and learning. So just to kickstart, to get each of your perspective on how you think mission-critical skill sets are important in organizations and how are they helping each business to develop and evolve, keeping the core objectives of various organizations. Asha, let's start with you.
Hey, hi. Thanks a lot. It's obviously awesome to be here and all ladies panel. This is the first time, in fact, I've been a part of this kind of a panel, and thanks a lot for the lovely introduction. I surely believe that acquiring new skills, updating, learning, relearning, unlearning is something very obvious to today's industry. In the kind of dynamic world what we are staying today and operating, these skills are extremely essential, and every organization today, if you look at the external scenario, every organization is actually trying their best to make sure learning is a continuous process for people, right? And and lot of technologies, lot of things which are become redundant. How do you overcome that? You probably have to sack the entire crowd of the employees and then bring in new set of people, right? Rather than that, upgrading them and making sure that they are upskilled is extremely important. And one of the most crucial thing in today's corporate world to retain, to be productive, and to be successful in any business what you are. That's my take on this.
Wonderful. On that very powerful kickstart. Bina, let's get you in on that.
Absolutely. Thank you, Devina and Asha. And thank you for noticing it is an all-women panel talking about digital and technology. One of the firsts. I think it is a good acknowledgement to all of us. On the topic, it is as close to telling maybe an HR professional to stay relevant, right? So if an organization doesn't invest in, or if an employee doesn't invest in, upskilling himself or herself, it's a direct impact on business. So the business doesn't stay relevant, it doesn't get a project, and hence it doesn't get, doesn't get to optimize its costs and doesn't get a profit after that because there are no projects coming in. So it is very, very fundamental to business. And as much as we stay relevant in terms of the apps that we use every day, in terms of the learning that we do for our own profession, I think if an individual doesn't take responsibility of his or her career within an organization by learning new things, I think it's the end of the story for an individual plus the organization, and hence its importance.
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Moumita?
Thank you so much, Devina. Nice to be here. So on the mission critical skill, I would say that, be it an individual or an organization, to even stay relevant in today's world, right, you need to be ahead in the game, right? So in order to be ahead in the game, I think just like how R&D is important to any organization, I think from a HR perspective, L&D is our R&D, right? So unless we invest in learning, I think employees or the organization will just move out of the race itself, right? So, and when we talk about mission critical skills, let's not forget that these are not only the technology skills, these could also be the softer aspects like the behavioral skills that are also changing, right? And one needs to keep pace. And sure, in this world of AI, ML, which are the new technologies trending in, right? Employees themselves also feel that, they need to move up the career ladder. Then obviously they need to be relevant in the latest technologies. So I think as an org, the best that we could do to enable this is to give our employees a gift, which is nothing but upskilling themselves, reskilling themselves. So I think that's the best that any org can do for their employees.
Absolutely wonderful. And we're going to deep dive, in fact, into the aspect of all the emerging technology, AI, ML, and so on. But for that, Arushee?
Yeah. So I think, mission critical, right? The word that we're using is mission critical. And it's typically the company's mission that all the employees are bought into, and that leads to the growth that is there. So I think that makes it very, very correlated with the organization and their thinking in terms of what they're doing for the stakeholders, from customers to society to employees and so on and so forth. And hence learning becomes a very, very important part of this mission. The only way to deliver outcomes is through your people, and the only way people can succeed is through their current skills and the skills that they need to know for doing their jobs better and better. So I think it's very well, it's very well articulated in terms of these being mission critical skills. And I love what you said about how L&D is the R&D of human capital, and that's very evident today.
Absolutely, absolutely. So looking at the evolution, of course, in the way in which L&D takes part in organizations, let's look at this. Let's look at how AI, ML, and all kinds of emerging technology has not only revolutionized the way of learning, but also sort of been integrated into the more traditional ways as well. Some examples and experience that each of you have had. Asha?
Yeah, sure. So when we are talking about digital learning or a continuous learning, right? It's a very strategic term because continuous comes there. If previously there used to be scenarios where as and when we require, we learn. But today, it is a demand that we make our workforce to be continuously learning, right? So there needs to be a lot of buy-ins of leadership, buy-in of technology, yes, buy-in of collaboration. Absolutely. Right? And it's a lovely thing that have come in today because the continuous learning is one of our value. So it becomes very easy for us to actually adapt it and make sure that it is a very natural way. Sure, it's a culture for us, right? So a lot of companies, and including Subex, what they are looking at, to use technology, the digital, to make sure there is a continuous learning is a lot of platforms. It can be your Coursera, it can be your these LinkedIn learnings, and many more of them, right? Udemy. These are the things what we are using today. Only not are these platforms which are useful. There are also bite-sized learnings, yes, right? Absolutely. Micro learnings, yes, where as and when I'm working, I don't need to go back and look at a full PDF. I just have a small link wherein this is exactly what I needed for my work. I just finish off, right? And there's huge mentorship, digital mentorships which are happening. So not necessary that I only have to be in US or in India to make sure I have a mentor over there. You just create a digital platform and you can have anywhere a mentorship going on, right? And these are a lot of things, and lot many other things like communication, a very clear communication across the organization telling that these are the things what we are offering for you actually can make people to really pick it up and start learning whatever they want. And also there is very one interesting thing, Devina, what I wanted to probably bring out over here is recently the reward based learning,
sure, okay,
which is actually picking up very beautifully. And you finish this course and you take this goodie from us, right? So people are motivated, and there are a lot of communities which have been formed. It can be on an online one, it can be on your LinkedIn's, it can be on Twitter or anywhere, right? Employees have started writing blogs about the kind of work what they are doing on mediums and other things. That's also very, very interesting. And there is also a continuous learning through competitions. It can be the hackathons or and it's you have to look at, when you talk about learning, it has to be for different age groups also, right? In a company like ours, we have different age groups. So probably a hackathon or a competitive kind of a learning becomes very interesting for the Gen Zs, right? So I think these are all the things what we can look at when we tell, like, you know, digital learning, digital transformation, right? So I think these are few pointers which I want.
Absolutely, and it keeps the workforce excited, motivated,
And
something to
retention.
retention.
It's a huge retention factor for us, actually.
Absolutely wonderful. Bina, same question to you. How do you see all these emerging technologies really impacting L&D, and how do you see sort of the maximization of the programs that you offer in-house thanks to all the technologies that are available to us today?
Absolutely, and very valid and good points, Asha. So thank you so much, and lovely questions. Besides what you've already mentioned, I think there are the basics of maybe take out the transactional load from certain departments through the implementation of technology, like a simple chatbot for assistance, right? Things that you need to do within your career and its journey, and how how a machine can actually tell you what is the right way to do it, right? Besides that, we also use it for comp-based decisions on when you want to hire somebody, rehire people, or career decisions, who is deserving of a promotion right now based on certain history that the people have, or rewards, even the rewards program. Many things can be used. Now, in order to maximize its impact, so there are so many different uses of what we're doing in the digital space within even HR, for example, right? But how do you maximize its impact? I think this comes down to the important success factors that you have for tech implementation. I think the first of which is basically training. Everybody's aware of what's happening, because being unaware can be a major roadblock, because I don't know how to use what you've done, right? The second most important thing is, I think, access. So, for example, we see so many things in nutrition and health these days, right? So somebody does a body analysis and says, you need to eat an avocado early in the morning every day, right? But is it available? So access in terms of price, access in terms of availability, access in terms of, am I able to afford the thing that you were saying? So the same thing, if you bring it back to technology, does everybody have access? You've implemented something, but are you a bit stringent on giving out user IDs because they're subscription based? Or do you like a certain team a little more, and hence they will get a lot more resource? Very basic and practical questions like these come into play, and it is, I think, our duty as leaders to ensure that there is a level playing field. So if you have technology, it is available to everybody to use fairly, and then that equity comes about. That if a person is wants to be more efficient, or if a team wants to go a certain way, they will anyway take the next milestone and go ahead. So I think access is very, very important, and you have to start sort of encouraging these behaviors of where people collaborate and work on common tech tools, right, available within the organization. People who contribute to technology implementation within the organization. Often there are certain groups of people pulled out from various functions or departments, and when they come together and really do something, I think that kind of behavior needs to be encouraged, because and how many maybe manual transactions are taken out of a certain function because of implementation of technology. If we don't stop by and acknowledge each of these things, then less likely that the behavior will be repeated. So in order to absorb tech, I think both of these characteristics need to come into play, besides looking at security. So a lot of personal identity is available once you implement technology. A lot of misuse of different forms and formats are available, but it is our duty as an organization to ensure that the ethical framework of the technology implementation is also kept, so that our employees are secure and they feel safe about using whatever you have in the organization. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. No, very valid point. So keeping all this in mind, would you say there are some specific steps that an organization needs to look at when it comes to being ready for this digital transformation in the L&D process?
Yeah. Not only L&D, in any transformation process for IT, I think first the basic question to ask is, what do we need? Is your need to, get rid of some employees, and that could be a valid answer. Is your need to stay relevant in the technology game because you want to become a world-class player, you want to be a Microsoft, Google, or a Geo, what is your need? Do you want your employees to become more efficient, take out automated tasks so that they're able to do more complex or creative processes? In other words, we are doing the opposite these days. No, we are allowing technology to dictate to us. How do we solve this complex problem, or how do we make this creative, But that's a human trait and behavior more, or learning more than technology. So technology you can use to, offload your automated tasks and do the human part yourself. And that is where the intelligence will come in, right? And so once you have an assessment of what you really want, then you get to the next stages of, what is our current state? How ready are we? Are we okay with the budget or not? Who are the vendors? How are employees going to do it? And then once you implement it, of course, the communication will play a very major role into how we do it. Because you need stakeholders' participation. You need them to accept what you are throwing at them, in the name of transformation. So if transformation is not sometimes driven from the employees itself, and every function is not saying that this is my need for technology today, then it is possible that either they are resistant to technology or they're insecure about jobs going away. But if you allow them the intelligent approach of saying, come and be a participant at the decision-making table and tell me what you really need, I think then the technology journey becomes very, very easy. Yeah. Also, you have to benchmark with the better companies and say that, am I going to be as good as them, or am I going to be the first player in the market? Something has to drive you from the technology point of view, and only then will it get done. Yeah.
That's wonderful, very valid. Moumita, let's bring you in on this. How you have seen in your experience the impact of all the emerging technologies really helping to shape the learning process in organizations?
Sure. So Sasken Technologies is a global company, and this is where I would say that we have a team in Finland which deals with the hardware side. We have a team in India which works on the software side. Now, if there is a client who needs a solution where both the hardware and software needs to come together, we also will have to think of how do we train our people in Finland and India jointly together, right? Now, that is not possible in a classroom kind of environment, and that is where we rely on digital platforms which provide learning opportunities, right? Similarly, if you look at companies like, let's say, Swiggy, Zomato, where they hire a lot of gig workforce, right? Now, how will you help a delivery partner learn, right? So I think there again, platforms are helping a lot. So every delivery person might have a mobile in their hands, and you just enable content on the mobile. Let's say a person sitting in, let's say UP, right, who may not understand any other language but his local language. So how do you enable learning on that platform for him in local language, right? So having bilingual content is also going to help such people, right? So I think, yeah, that's the way it's really, really helping disrupt the space in L&D. Technology is really helping.
Absolutely. Crossing the language barrier is actually a very important aspect, right? Because ultimately also what we're here to talk about is having an equal opportunity laid out for people regardless of their demographics, regardless of cultural backgrounds and experiences. So we'll get a little bit of all your inputs on that. But before that, Arushee, of course, now you work with organizations across the board. So just give us, your sort of perspective on AI, ML, all the innovations that you're seeing in the learning space, and how ultimately this is really impacting organizations in their L&D process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we have the pleasure of working across different organizations, and I would call this in three prongs. The first is there's hardly anybody who would have had formal education on AI and Gen AI at the time when they were students, right? So each of us need to be students to be enabled on basic literacy, but also the functional elements of Gen AI. And given our founder, Andrew Ng, has been in the AI space, has been a Stanford professor in AI. He has been a pioneer, and we've had the pleasure of his, his oversight in terms of what we are doing. So we've been able to really deliver that to our customers in terms of teaching AI and Gen AI and its applications. The second is, how do we use this new technology to make things easier for learners as well as for admins? And for this, we have created these products on our platform, where on the learner side, this is Coursera Coach, where we've been talking about personalized learning for so many years now. And today we have the ability to do personalized learning at scale through this AI-enabled real-time coach, being able to guide you in terms of what you should do on the platform, how do you summarize your learnings, how do you take it to the next level. And then there is also a product that we released called Course Builder, where hours and hours of content which is available on our platform, but also the context of the company can be brought together through some basic inputs provided, and a course and a curriculum is created through the power of Gen AI, which also does not hallucinate by taking inputs from the internet which are unverified and only takes the quality content. So that's the second element of actually making sure the platform is able to provide the benefits to learners and to admins and to companies as a whole. And the last is, how do we get quality education and quality skilling across the board? Often when the medium of learning is not English, the quality is not maintained. So what we found is, through machine translations, the same quality can be delivered to every individual, along with the ability to chat and to interact with the platform in the language that they are most comfortable in. So I think these three-pronged approaches of delivering AI, new age content to every individual, having the platform being so intelligent that this actually helps, and of course the quality being dispersed across the board. That's really what we've done and has seen fantastic results amongst our customers.
Fantastic, very holistic approach actually to working with organizations. Wonderful. Asha, now you already alluded to the importance of all the stakeholders being involved in the decision-making process. And surely as an HR leader, this is something that for you ends up being a boardroom discussion. How again do you get sort of collaboration and buy-in from the stakeholders, and how does this ultimately impact the efficacy of your initiatives in-house?
Okay. So you probably there is a diversity angle in this, right? Diversity and inclusion.
Yes.
Surely today at this point, these kind of things are just not at the desk of HR. It is coming
Absolutely,
in AOP, it is in our
Absolutely.
yearly plan,
Yeah,
and it
yeah.
goes to the board members, and we discuss what is the kind of initiatives what we want to take, and what is the kind of progress what we are doing, and with details we
Yes.
discuss in the boardroom,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Now I totally believe when Moumita was telling that few pointers where leaders, right? We need to have the buy-in of the leaders. If you
Absolutely.
don't have a
Yes.
sponsorship of leaders, or if it's not from top down, these kind of things today, if I am a leader, if I am doing few courses and getting certificates for myself, my team is surely going to look at it and take it as an example, right? So one is about leadership. You have to showcase that, stand there and you have to get your hands dirty and you have to get plunge into it, and that's when your team is going to, and slowly it'll spread across. It's a culture, right? Culture is very fluid, very dynamic, and changes as the leaders are changing, right? That is one thing. Second thing is, we make sure that we take the previous year's progress on the initiatives, and all our initiatives are data based. So I surely don't believe if there is no data, right? And it is waste of time is what I feel it's already I've done an initiative.
Yes.
What is the kind of data what I have? Whether it's helped my employees, does my employees respond to the kind of initiatives what I have done, right? That's when we are going to present that also in board, in fact. So, and we make sure that we have regular touch base with the leaders to make sure that this is what we are doing, and we need your sponsors, we need your buy-in. And that is when people come in. Even a small initiatives without that particular functional heads or their buy-in, it's not possible. And gone are the days, if you look at it, that it's just HR's work. Absolutely no. It's a bang on that it has to be with all the leaders. They can be technologists or they can be HR, finance, whatever it is. It's a culmination together where actually you can have a successful initiative or anything to be done where it can be productive and it can give you the requested yield.
Yes, wonderful,
Right?
wonderful. Thanks for that. Bina, getting you in on this, so clearly, of course, this is all pervasive, right? Whatever technology, whatever digitization you're implementing in the organization, it's all pervasive. So how do you sort of create a work environment and a work culture where tech is deeply ingrained in the DNA of your organization? You can't separate it from the learning process. You can't separate it from the overall strategy of the organization. So how do you create that environment?
It requires a very, very holistic approach, and it requires too many functional heads putting their heads together. Because you're trying to become a tech company in a way, right? So your workflows, you have to have tech in each of your workflows that you're doing. You have to have tech in how you're doing learning. If you look at the entire employee life cycle, right from an onboard to an exit, there are, I think, a million opportunities where you can automate a task that doesn't need a human being or an interface, and a task that can be done much better, right? So how do you identify? So while she was saying the basic strategic parts need to be done by you yourself as of now. Let's see in the future what happens. But today we are making AOP with the business, right? We're doing skill mapping with the business, and we are doing this based on their business plans. We're doing culture building with the business, so you can't really alienate the two. So once you have that foundation ready, and only then, otherwise it becomes like you've skipped a level. You have to be very, very business aligned, and you have to take employee perspective from different groups, looking at the diversity angle. So identify the different influence groups within your organization, take their feedback, take their submissions, and understand what you need to do. Take your leadership sponsorship. Once that foundation is achieved and you know really what you want to do, then if you look at any process life cycle or any employee life cycle, I think even if you sit down with yourself, you can identify the steps that you need to do, right? From onboarding to training to hiring to comp decisions. Every bit has technology in it, every workflow, every approval. It doesn't have to be an email over everything. We've gotten into this email overload since a few years, right? And some of us think that if we spend 9 hours in the office clearing mails, we've done our job for the day. I think that is so stupid because it's a form of communication which you can use for taking approvals, for maintaining a record for the future, or for passing on an instruction to somebody who needs a formal sign-off to start off some work. Besides that, it is text, not too much use. So at every step of every process that we identify in HR or finance or legal or business or technology, any of the functions, if you go through a life cycle of any process that you identify, how do you manage work, for example? How do you manage your project management? There's so many tools available in the market today. How are you asking for status? How are you presenting reports? What is the dashboard that you send out every morning? Do you want to be so secure that you want to make the report every morning and send it out and hence you are important? Or do you want to free up that strategic thinking space and creative space and tell a machine how to do it? These are decisions we need to take based on employee confidence, security, the trust that the organization instills in its own employees. So many cultural factors come into play. How you communicate, how often you communicate, what are you talking in your town halls, right? How much do I trust my employees within the ranks throughout? Do I trust them to tell me what technology they want to use? It's also a decision for them. No? You can't trust somebody and say this is the best thing and I'm the CIO, I've decided. So it may not work. So if you don't take everyone along the way, and if you don't minutely break down every process and every life cycle into its steps, I think hardly a chance that you have covered everything. You might do one implementation of one module and say that we're tech now, but we're not tech, because then you will get into troubles of communicating with other functions much more if there is no integration. For example, if an HCM module doesn't talk to a FICO module, you're lost. Your posting happens somewhere else, and your bills happen somewhere else, and the employee record is somewhere else. It doesn't work in the real world. If you have to have a sensible transformation, then all your functions need to be aligned, all the employees, all the layers. So it's basically about alignment and identification of each and every small step. Requires a lot of thinking. Requires a human being for now.
Yes, there you go. Absolutely. The human element, of course, is completely indispensable, regardless of the fact of all the digitization we're talking about here today. Yeah. So, Moumita, you brought up a very interesting point. So, you mentioned part of your team is in Finland, and of course, you are dealing with people across the globe. So, how have you seen AI, but any of the emerging technologies impact you in a way that the language barriers are no longer as pervasive when it comes to deploying across the board learning and development programs? Also regionally within India, of course, there's so much diversity just here in our country. So how has technology helped sort of bridge that gap?
Yeah, so that's a very good question and thanks for asking that. So what we've done is in our learning platform, right, it kind of has the ability to convert itself into the local languages. So we also have an office in Japan. So when the Japanese person is logging into the platform, he or she is able to read it in the local language, which is Japanese. Similarly, Finland. So the Finland employees are able to see the same content that people from India are seeing in a Finnish language, right? Similarly, within India as well, if we have offices in Chennai, Kolkata, Pune, they are all available, and there is an option to choose. Do you want to say it in English, or would you like to say it in your local language? Now, if that helps in better understanding, then why not, right? Similarly, we also hire specially abled people. So people who are blind do have it in Braille, right? So yeah, that's how I think the language barriers are overcome in our organization.
So promising to hear these developments and initiatives. And so, Arushee, again, we are talking about how technology is really helping everybody across the board have equal opportunities, right? Democratizing of the offerings that organizations give to their employees. So could you help us sort of summarize and really bring together all these wonderful experiences that our guests have shared today? In your experience, how has tech really enabled a fair learning process with complete DE&I considerations kept in mind?
Absolutely. So I think, the wonderful thing that the HR leaders are doing is looking at every individual as an individual versus a part of a cluster or a part of a group. And because they are looking at every individual as somebody having slightly different needs or vastly different needs, we have a good understanding of what is it that they are trying to do. So I think the unit of equity and the unit of being able to make the change is understanding what the individual would want. And there are many axes along which the individual might differ from somebody who's their colleague. It might be background, it might be learning preference, it might be demographics, and it might be a whole host of other things, including what is it that they are trying to learn today. So if we look at these, I think what organizations have done a great job of is evolve from the last few years that we have been seeing, from treating learning just as a benefit, which has to be given as a tick box to the employee, to actually the unit of skilling and hence work, to now becoming a topic where outcomes are driven because of this, because all of the learning which is happening today is on mission critical skills, and only then are the organizations able to thrive. So that's really where we have seen both the buy-in as well as the intention coming from the leaders, which has led to wonderful outcomes for the learners and hence, of course, for the organization. So it becomes a virtuous cycle in that sense.
Sure. And therefore, equal opportunities across the board.
Exactly.
Across demographics. Wonderful. Well, ladies, thank you so much really powerful insight here. Before we wrap up, if each of you can leave our viewers today with a key takeaway on how you perceive the future of learning in the workplace. Just one key takeaway. Asha? I know that's a tough one on such a vast subject.
Yeah. So just don't stop learning, keep on continuously learning. Not necessary you only have to be doing academic things, right? You can probably start new skill like a swimming, skiing, whatever it is, or a wheel yoga, anything, right? Everything keeps you, whichever keeps you satisfied, yes, gets you a good sleep, and probably keeps you active, right? So anything. So probably that is my take, and I'm not very academic person, so I always tell even my child also, make sure that you learn other things, so that you're not always stuck to your books or anything like that. So I think continuous learning is something which is extremely important in today's world, especially for the youngsters and even people who have experienced in the industry, because to make sure that you are there and you're upbeating everything, make sure you unskill, upskill, reskill, and update yourself.
Wonderful. Learning as a lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Bina?
I think I'd like to focus on staying relevant. Understand your profession really well, understand the corporate environment in which you're functioning, stay relevant, because that's the only way you'll survive. If you don't grow, you will die, right? You have to learn. Also, I think the importance of humility is very important here. How to always maintain a learner's mindset, how to not really tell yourself every single day and remind yourself that, this is it and I've achieved it and that's the end of, there's nothing much that you can do after that. So maintaining a learner's mindset with a lot of humility, I think that'll keep the learning game on. Yeah.
Moumita?
Yeah, I think just as you need oxygen, food, to survive, I think in order to survive in today's world, learning has to be there in everyone's DNA. And just to add a small point, I think we should also give back, So whatever we learn, as long as we are able to give back to the next generation, that is something they'll cherish forever.
share it. Yeah, absolutely. Arushee, you have a very tough job after these wonderful answers, but I'm sure you have something.
No, and
great
I
in
would like
mind.
to say such a great perspective, right? Given your question was on how should we think about learning, and such great diverse perspectives on what learning is. So I think, I would say learning is the common denominator of everything that we are doing. Because even if we feel like we know something, there is always opportunity to keep getting better and better and better. So I think if we are able to look at learning as something that we're doing all the time, it may be unstructured and continuous, or it may be structured and something that we do very intentionally where we are really upskilling. So I think just being intentional about learning is so important, because that is when retention happens and that is when we're able to use learning, because passive learning will not really lead to individual outcomes, and active learning will lead to outcomes for self and for the organization. So I think being intentional is very important.
Wonderful. Wow. Ladies, thank you so much. Such an inspiring panel. Do continue to inspire your teams as you do, and all our viewers out there. So thank you for sharing your insights, all your experiences and your candid direction so far. Thank you. It's
Thank
been
you,
a pleasure.
Devina. You've been wonderful yourself. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.